Hello everyone, this is Carolina Joyce Reyes, Bachelor in Secondary Education, major in Filipino. So for today's video, I will be discussing about the migration and development. So without further ado, let's proceed to the discussion. So the next slide, we have here the introduction caused by making migration work for sustainable development for migrants, also a countries of origin and countries of destination. So the next slide we have here the M and D. M means migration and D means development. So first, what is at stake? Means the migration matters today more than ever before. Also, migration is relevant to all three pillars of sustainable development. Also, to add more, governments now increasingly recognize that migration is both inevitable and necessary. Also, that it can be contribute to inclusive and sustainable social and economic development. So the next slide, we have here the effects of migration and development. So migration is relevant to the economic, social, and environmental dimension of sustainable development and peace and security. So the next one we have here the migration dynamics, and also the second one we have here the international migrants in context. So for the migration dynamics, we have 7 billion population and 1 billion migrants. For the 232 million international and for 740 million internal, which feminization 50%. And for the international migrants in context, the population between 4th and 5th largest countries. For the Indonesia, which is the 4th, which have a 237 billion, and international migrants which has 232 million. For the Brazil, they place for the 5th largest countries, which they have 193 million people. So the next one we have here economic contribution, which are the size of large GDPs. For Saudi Arabia, they have USD 434 billion. And for annual migrants remittance, they have USD 414 billion. And for Australia, we have USD 379 billion. So the next slide, we have here the key findings, which comparing four pathways of migration. So most international daw migrant move from the south to the north or between the counties in the south. So we have four migration pathways. Gallup estimate of first generation adult migrant stock. So to the north right, we have 22%, and to the north down, we have 5%, and to the south left, we have 33%, and to the south upward, we have 40%. Next slide, we have here more than half of the top 20 migration corridors are accounted for by people migrating from the south to the south. And top 20 migration corridors worldwide, migrant stock in 1,000 using the World Bank classification, which year 2010. So for the legend map, the green one we have north and the yellow one we have south. So for the gray arrow, we have north migration corridor, and for the red arrow, we have south migration corridor, and for the blue arrow, we have south-north migration corridor. The next slide, we have here migration trends in EECA. While the migrant stocks in the region seem to have been stabilizing, other types of human mobility emerge, like student and mobility. So we have here a graph which are the international migrant stock on 1990 to 2013. The next one, we have the outbound mobile student on year 2011. So the next slide, we have here the remittances inflows in EECA on year 2012, which means considerable impact of remittances inflows on 5 EECA countries, in which above daw and 10% of GDP. So as you can see here in the graph, which is the remittances inflows in million and percent of GDP on year 2012. So the next slide, we have here post year 2015 development agenda, which means 2015 deadline for achievement of Millennium Development Goals, and also safe orderly migration equals development gains. also forced or unplanned migration equals negative repercussion for human development. So the next slide, we have here migration as an enabler of development. So first enablers, we have here fair and stable global trading system, adequate financing for development and stable financial system, affordable access to technology and knowledge, and providing sustainable energy for all, coherent macroeconomic and development policy support of inclusive and green growth. And the next enablers, we have here the sustainable food and nutrition security, universal access to quality healthcare, universal access quality to education, inclusive social protection system. And the third enablers, we have here the sustainable use of natural resources like climate, oceans, biodiversity, and management of waste, and also managing disaster risk and improving disaster response. And the last enablers, we have democratic and coherent global governance mechanism, and also good governance practices based on the rule of law and human rights protection. What you can see here as a center, which means the future we want for all, equality, sustainability, human rights, which means in the green one circle, environmental sustainability, protecting the biodiversity is stable climate, and also universal access to clean water and satisfaction. In the blue one, we have inclusive economic development, which means eradicating income, poverty, and hunger, and reducing inequalities and ensuring decent work and productive employment. And the red one, we have here the peace and human security, especially to us people. So freedom from violence, conflict, and abuse, resilience to natural hazards, conflict-free access to natural resources. And the brown one, we have here the inclusive human development, which means the adequate nutrition for all, quality and education for all. Also, the quality education for all reduce the mortality and morbidity, adequate social and protection. The next one, we have here improving development outcomes. So first, promoting the integration of migration within development processes at national, regional, global levels. So for the second one, we have here the protecting and promoting the human rights of all migrants, including undocumented, stranded, stateless, or otherwise vulnerable migrants. And for the third one, we have here supporting interstate, multi-stakeholder consultation and cooperation on migration, especially by providing the knowledge and expertise. So the next one, we have here the effective approaches. First, mainstreaming migration into development processes. And the second one, we have here development at local level. The third one, we have here diaspora engagement. And the fourth one, we have here ethical recruitment standards. So the next slide, we have here HLD Roundtable recommendation, which means assessing the effects of international migration on sustainable development and identifying relevant priorities in view of the preparation of the post-year 2015 development framework, which are include migration in the post-2015 UN Development Agenda as part of a new global partnership for development and as a cross-cutting enabler. Also, the mainstream migration into development and broader sectional planning and especially labor market policy, health and human rights protection at local. Also, national and global levels and both in developing and developed countries. And for the next table recommendation, we have embarked on an exclusive process of mainstreaming migration into the other policy sectors with participation by all relevant ministries and government agencies, civil societies, academia, and diaspora organizations led by designated institution or coordination bodies equipped with the necessary capacities. Last but not the least about the recommendation, which is to raise the quality of research and data collection and migration, and invest now in more systematic evaluation and impact assessment of migration policies and migration and development initiatives, like including through comparable indicators and data on migration and on the nexus between migration and development. So that would be all about the HLD roundtable recommendation. So this all topic is all about M&D, which is the migration and development. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to comment down below. And thank you for watching and listening my discussion about the migration and development.